Good afternoon, Tansi and Neen, everyone. Welcome to APTN InFocus. I'm Daryl Stranger. Today we're going to be taking a look at the long-standing issue of the unhoused population in Canada and what can be done to change things for the better. We'll speak with advocates who have been on the streets themselves and are looking to make change, as well as others working towards the same goal. Now, as always, we want you to join in on our conversation. You can tweet us at APTN InFocus, or you can send us an email at infocus@aptn.ca. Now, just before I introduce you to our guests today, here's just a few statistics on those unhoused in Canada. From Stats Canada, in Canada, almost 3% of people who make housing decisions for their household have experienced unsheltered homelessness, while about 15% have experienced hidden homelessness, which is having to live with family or friends or anywhere else. Now, the study on which this infographic is based on looks at individuals who have experienced homelessness in the past and are now responsible for housing decisions within their household. The results are therefore not necessarily representative of all Canadians aged 15 and older. However, information on unsheltered homelessness is pretty scarce, and the benefits of this data outweigh their limitations. Now, back to the data. Men make up 2.6% of those experiencing unsheltered homelessness, while hidden homelessness sits at 14.2%. Women are at 2.3% unsheltered and 15% hidden homelessness. Now, with these numbers, First Nations people living off reserve are at 12%, Métis at 6%, and Inuit at 10% are more likely to have experienced unsheltered homelessness than the non-Indigenous population, which sits at just 2%. Homelessness is also more common among women who are sexual minorities, and that number is at 8%. The recent unsheltered homelessness is more common among women than among men. 38% of unsheltered homelessness episodes experienced by women were between 2010 and 2019. Now, those numbers are as of last year from Stats Canada. And our first guest this afternoon is doing incredible work here in Winnipeg. Daniel Hidalgo has volunteered with many organizations in the city, but he recently has started his own nonprofit volunteer group called Community 204. And Daniel joins us now to talk about that work. Daniel, thanks so much for being here in studio with us.
Thank you for having me.
So, first off, why don't we just start with Community 204 and what it is and what you guys do?
So basically, Community 204 is a platform made up of individuals with significant lived life experience in a variety of systems, whether it's child and family, justice, marginalization, and it's a way for them to help support the marginalized community by providing basic needs and support in a variety of capacities, just based on what we like to call lateral empathy.
So why did you want to start this? I mean, you've worked with so many different organizations and you're also part of the Sabe Peace Walkers, so why did you want to sort of start your own little thing?
Well, we've been doing this work under the guidance of Mitch Bourbonnier for years, but when the pandemic hit, we really noticed that the effects of poverty and marginalization were severely compounded, and a lot of resources that folks were used to were shutting down due to provincial restrictions. I myself am a lifetime product of the child and family welfare system, so I know how it feels to desire to belong to something, to seek affirmation, validation, but also to be in the position of those needing support. And so the kids that I work with often feel the same way, and we figured, what can we do to give back to the folks that need something? We have a slogan called helping is healing, helping is medicine, and when we give back to those folks, we do get a sense of self-fulfillment, and we feel great about ourselves, but also engaging with folks that we might not have had opportunities to do so otherwise. So that was kind of how that ball got rolling.
So it sounds like you and some of the volunteers you work with have a bit of lived experience as well in the area. How important is that when you're going about the community and trying to do some of the work that you're doing?
I think it allows for us to establish relationships and positive rapport a lot more easily and effectively. Oftentimes folks kind of resonate with other individuals who kind of look like them or may have come from similar circumstances. It's a lot easier to form that sense of empathy and compassion, but also to get a sense of someone's intentions when you know they've been there.
Mm-hmm. And at the start of the show, I mean, we just saw some of the statistics that I was talking about. When you hear some of those stats, and it seems like every year they either get worse or stay the same, I mean, what kind of goes through your mind, and why do you think
these numbers are the way they are?
It shows a concern for me, and it obviously screams the fact that change needs to happen. It allows you to see that what's been going on right now isn't working as good as it should, and it also kind of sheds light on the fact that we have to start seeking ulterior options and thinking outside of the box perhaps, and shifting the way things are done to meet the needs of the people.
So then on the flip side of that, what are some of these things that can be done to help change those numbers and change the narrative a bit in terms of what's happening?
I think there needs to be more focus on some of the grassroots organizations that are heavily immersed in the front lines. They're the ones that are there for the right reasons. They're the ones that are least supported in supporting others. They're the ones whose heart lie in this work, and they're the ones whose work has been proven to be deeply effective. A lot of these folks have limited access to resources, and they're apprehensive on trusting programs and things like that because there's been inconsistencies. So, the grassroots organizations have just always been there doing that work. And so through that, you've established trust, you've established honesty, you've established integrity, and that allows those folks to really trust your vision for what they can and can't accomplish. Even systemically, navigating systems is super hard. The loopholes are unreal. It's almost like a battle you can't win. And then when you already go into something feeling defeated, it's super hard to envision yourself coming out of the circumstances that you're in.
So are we talking more funding, more of these organizations? Like what exactly are we talking? Specifics?
In my personal opinion, what I've been able to do with my group with no funding, running completely out of pocket, has been tremendous. And I can only imagine the milestones that I could reach and the demographic I could extend to had I had that financial support. And I think the same can be said for groups like Sabe Peace Walkers. We have DCSP out there doing tremendous work too. But we're fairly limited in that sense. But any kind of support with that groundwork, it would go a long way.
And it seems like, at least here in Winnipeg, and I'm sure across the country, it's sort of the same. There seems to be more of these groups popping up and more people wanting to take action. You started your own after working with numerous organizations, and there are still these organizations. Is it encouraging for you to sort of see people wanting to make change and wanting to sort of take things upon themselves and do this?
Absolutely. I think that speaks to the fact that people are starting to see these gaps and they want to alleviate those gaps and mitigate some of the experiences that folks are dealing with. I think the fact that things are popping up organically speaks to a desire to give back to others. And we really believe in something called lateral unity. So there's no ego in anything that we do. You're helping in this way, you have this skill set, we have this skill set, you can reach this, we can reach this, let's come together and reach more collectively. I think there needs to be more of that because the need continues to increase.
So then if somebody's watching this and they've always thought about maybe joining one of these groups or maybe trying to start their own, what sort of advice would you have? You started sort of from the ground up with the work, and you've been doing this for a really long time now. So do you have any advice on maybe how somebody can get involved in trying to do something like this?
Yeah, absolutely. I think our city has been tremendous in having a desire to help, but they don't always know how, and they don't know, you don't always have to create your own platform, but you can utilize existing ones. We've had some tremendous groups that have been existing for a long time doing what we call heart work. An example is Mama Bear Clan. Community 204, we all utilize social media. That's kind of the trend nowadays to get your message and spread that awareness. Right. Join those groups and kind of recognize the call outs that they put, join in on things, join in on activism. Realize that helping someone doesn't require much from you. Sometimes it's just time, sometimes it's effort. Even financially, we're able to feed 200 folks with $70. It's not out of the realm of possibility to give back. You just gotta find those routes and kind of take that first step.
Well, so then I want to get into that a little bit. Is how do you do it? You said basically next to no funding. Like how do you specifically do that and have success?
So originally what I had done is I was just doing it out of pocket. Just the need was there, and it allowed me to engage with people. I think the pandemic created a divisiveness across the world, and so for me, I needed that connection. The youth that I work with also long for that connection. So I just did that just out of pocket.
Right.
Down the road, once we created social media and stuff, that's when we had the capacity to start accepting, help from other people, whether it's local business businesses. We have Community Helpers Unite and Leftovers, and they kind of had food products that they really needed to use before they were no good.
Right.
So we didn't want to waste that. So we started collaborating with other existing groups. We have the Brotherhood that joins us as well, and it gives them an opportunity to start working on independent living skills, cooking, how to be reasonable with your spending. You know, a soup is a hearty meal.
Mm-hmm.
And so all these things, all these pieces to this moving puzzle just came together really, really organically. So it spoke both to the need, but also the desire of folks wanting to help.
Yeah, well, that sounds like amazing work, and it sounds like it's something that's super simple that can be done right across the country, right?
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
Just with your Community 204, are you able to sort of give us any plans on what you guys are going to be doing in the future, whether that be short-term or long-term? Just a little bit more about Community 204.
Yeah, so we recently, because like our services extend beyond just providing food and stuff, like we were recently able to secure an enclosed trailer. So through that, we've been able to provide folks living with financial barriers, physical limitations, with residency relocation. Not only that, but it's allowed us to connect with folks in the community to retrieve furniture provisions and redistribute those to folks who are getting back on their feet, who are finding sobriety, who have secured housing, and they're leaving that negative cycle and starting that positive cycle. We've been able to provide them with furniture so that their house becomes a home. Mm-hmm. Right, and so that's been a beautiful blessing that we've been able to do, and we're hoping to continue to grow. We utilize the Thunderbird House, right, which is a cultural pinnacle in our city. It's a building that needs life in it, so we've been honored to be able to bring that life back to the building, to give back to the folks. So we're just hoping to be able to continue the work that we're doing, but also find ways to reach out to others and to get more involved.
And lastly, before we let you go here, Daniel, I mean, where do you see sort of this situation with those that are unhoused and across Canada and in Winnipeg? I mean, where do you see this going in the near future? And
Well, I think with organizations like End Homelessness really trying to tackle the increases and buildings opening up like Nadinawaymak, which is also known as Our Relatives, has been crucial in addressing the issue. And I think that they're developing plans long term to help mitigate those numbers and address some underlying issues that might have been overlooked in the past. And then just other groups coming to fruition to help people navigate those systems and learn what kind of resources and supports they're actually entitled to. I think all of those things in combination will definitely help bring some of those numbers down. Mm-hmm. And then just an overall community understanding of the effects of mental illness and the severity behind that, as well as like just how devastating and destructive substance abuse is as well. Those things, all those things in combination, addressing those issues will really help us find a way to remedy them.
Well, we'll have to leave the conversation there for now. Daniel, I want to say thank you so much for coming in and sharing about what you do. And it's just incredible work that you and Community 204 and all the other groups do. So thank you so much for coming in and joining us.
No worries. It's my pleasure. Thank you.
All right, we have to step aside for a short break. We'll have more on this discussion next. Welcome back to APTN in Focus. Let's go to social media now with our social media editor, Jesse Andrushko, to hear what some of you are saying about today's topic.
Thanks, Daryl. Online, we asked our followers what they think is the most important thing for people to understand about someone who lives on the streets. We got a lot of insightful responses. Let's take a look. From our APTN News page on Instagram, Caroline said, "It's a complex issue revolving around traumas, addictions, and mental health." Catherine said, "They have as much right to public spaces and resources as everyone else." From Marty, "We as communities and society have failed the people who are going without their basic needs. That doing drugs doesn't make someone less worthy of care and support, that they aren't less." Jane said that everyone living on the street has a story. From Emily, that it can happen to anyone. People don't realize how fragile stability is. On Facebook, Manda said that some folks choose the street and tent cities as a safer alternative than what is offered. An evaluation of services and agencies and organizations being held accountable would be ideal, but I'd rather see that research money being spent on clean and intentional housing. From Tina, "It could happen to you." Jessica said that there is no reason for anyone to live on the streets. Comfortable, autonomous, safe housing is a human right, and we should put our collective resources towards making it happen. On Twitter, Claude said, "Mental health issues are the root cause of it all." Lastly, Jennifer said, "They should be valued just as much as anyone else. Unless you know why they wind up on the street, even if you do know, give them respect." Thank you to everyone for taking the time to respond. If you want to share your thoughts on the unhoused, here's how. Join our conversation now. Like us on Facebook on our APTN News page, follow or tweet us at APTN InFocus, and send your thoughts to infocus@aptn.ca.
All right, thanks so much for that, Jesse. Last month, a 54-year-old Tsimshian and Nisga'a man was found dead in a homeless encampment in northern BC. A City of Terrace bylaw officer discovered Richard Nelson's body in a tent during extremely cold conditions. Nelson's family is calling for more support for the homeless. APTN's Lee Wilson reports.
Diana Gnu holds the belt of her brother, Richard Nelson. They grew up in Port Edward in Kitsim-Kalem. Her brother became a fisherman like their father, and he even operated his own boat. But after many losses in their family, Nelson struggled with alcohol and had been homeless for 10 years. She would see her brother often in the City of Terrace.
I told him, tomorrow's the burial, the day we buried, our anniversary burying our mother. I said, "We'll pick you up. We'll go to the gravesite, and I made something for her."
Gnu did not get to see her brother that next day. According to the RCMP, his body was discovered by a City of Terrace bylaw officer in a tent during -20 below freezing conditions right before the Christmas holiday. It was a phone call she feared receiving. She would often tell her brother to take care of himself.
"It's going to be the worst phone call in the world for me. We lost so much. I don't want to lose you. I don't want to lose you. You're my brother. You're there for me. Now when I go out in the streets, I always say, well, no more looking for my brother. No more looking for him. No more riding all the streets to find him, to go see he's okay, to get him, make sure he's warm."
The City of Terrace has been struggling with a growing homeless population. Last year, a tent city or encampment was a topic of debate for the City Council and advocates. In an email statement to APTN News, Kasan Society, a non-profit operating the cold weather shelter in the city, said they did have spaces available. I can tell you that Richard did have access to our shelter on the evening of his passing. Our shelter spaces are accessible 24/7, and during extreme weather, we always ensure that we have sufficient overflow capacity for those seeking shelter. Individuals will sometimes choose not to access the shelter. Richard Nelson's family is uncertain why he did not access the cold weather shelter the night he passed. They are still waiting for confirmation from the coroner's office on the cause of death. Gnu believes more supports to overcome addictions and challenges of being homeless are needed.
Homeless people are very vulnerable. They're very vulnerable people. If nobody stands up and says, look out for me, nobody would be there for them.
Richard Nelson's sister Diana Gnu joins us now here on In Focus. Diana, we appreciate you coming on In Focus today, and condolences to you and your family as well. First off, are you able to just give us an update, if there is any, on your brother's death?
We find out today from the funeral home on cremation. The process that took so long was him being homeless and him being under the ministry and the circumstances of how he was found. So, and it being the holidays after the December 22nd, we ran right into holidays where people were not there. It was everybody's holiday, so we had to wait during the holidays, and then we had to wait for the release from the ministry, from the hospital to the funeral home. Now he's at the funeral home. Now we're waiting for the date on a cremation.
Well, again, my condolences to you and your family. What do you think maybe needs to change to stop people from dying on the street? I know it's sort of a hard question to ask, but in your opinion, what sorts of things need to happen?
I think for terrorists here, like it's all over BC, homelessness, but for some places, people aren't biased the way they should be. If they know, this certain client or applicant or whatever, homeless person has a problem, they don't address the problem, they address the person, which makes it harder for the person to try and get, shelter. Two people, or three of them, or two, I'm not sure if it's two or three, that were banned from the shelter that my brother was trying to help that night. He lent them a coat. He went to go see if they were okay. They weren't allowed in the shelter because they were banned for some reason. I think it was alcohol. So my brother knows too that if he does consume alcohol, don't go to the shelter. They won't let you in. They'll give you a hard time. They should understand these people need more support than to say, go away, get away, go out, go do wherever you're going to go. It's hard to see people in the streets. Everywhere I go right now, everyone looks like my brother. Everybody looks like they're wearing the same stuff he wore.
Mm-hmm. Well, so you said, sorry, Diana, go ahead.
They just need to, change, the shelter policies, because when someone isn't allowed to go in there, and it was minus 24 that night that he passed in the wind chill. And when someone's not allowed to go in the shelter, my brother cares for them. My brother did care for them. He looked after them. He lent them his coat.
Well, unfortunately, there are so many stories, similar to yours across the country. And like you said, it's in Terrace and it's in BC, and unfortunately, it is all over the country. For an overall sort of question, like, what do you think is the reason for that? I had spoken with an advocate as well, and he said it's still the trauma and the healing that needs to be done from intergenerational survivors and survivors of residential school. What do you think maybe is the problem that it's such a widespread issue?
Well, in most of their cases, the alcohol seems to be their addiction. But with some of them, they try to put a stop to it. But, when it's done their time, when they've done, like my brother went to Integrity in Prince George. It was a 6-month program. He didn't complete it, but he had the offer. And he, the first fault, he was told to leave. Where did they let him go to? The streets. They didn't send him home. They didn't say, here's a bus ticket or wherever, whatever. They sent him on the streets of Prince George, and he had to find his way around, get to the welfare office, get some money, and he got his way home. I actually found a way for him to get home.
So then is that also like a kind of support that you're calling for as well? Is like, what kinds of support specifically do you think are needed to help sort of change the way things are done, either for those that are houseless or those that may be in shelters and maybe have to leave the shelter for whatever reason?
I don't see very many addiction resources here at all. No, nothing that compares to, like we have to go, like I said, my brother had to go all the way to Prince George. Other people have to go all the other ways, like Roundtree is another one. The closest one, I believe, is in Hazelton, which is another, distance from Terrace. But it's still, there's no one to talk to here. There's no, not even a helpline for these people to call and say, my brother told me he was tired. He was tired of drinking. He was tired of being on the streets. I'm getting old, sister. I need somewhere to live. So I kept looking. I kept looking. But again, that brought back the problem of where, he was stereotyped, an alcoholic. He was stereotyped, loud person. He was stereotyped everything. They stereotype all of us. So, when they say, that old saying says you all look the same, that's how it feels. It's what it looks like on the street when, they don't help them. They just send them back out there.
Now, I know there's been more, announcements for funding in terms of for various reasons that support this cause. But do you think it's enough, and do you think governments could be doing more to support those that are houseless?
Yes, there needs to be more done in Terrace. There is a complex going up through Kassan House, but that's for women fleeing abusive relationships with single women with children and elderly people fleeing, homes that were going to be deemed condemned. There's lots of places here that are getting condemned, and people have been living in there for, over 20, 10, 15 years, and they're getting condemned, and there's absolutely nowhere to go in Terrace to rent, or even, apartment-wise or house-wise. And if it is, then we've got another problem, right? It's the rent increase that everybody has to pay, and, where there's just no solution with anything.
Well, and before we let you go, Diana, would you have any words for families who might be in a similar situation to yours, and any advice maybe on how to deal with it, or what to do next?
I've always looked after my brother on the streets. I always, took the time. Take your time, people. Take your time. Go see your family. Go see what's wrong. I'll ask them all the time, what can I do to help you? And I tried, but you couldn't find anything near here yet. They go 6-7 hours away. People, look after your homeless ones. Look after your sick. Look after your elderly. It's really hard when you lose someone. I lost my mother. It was December 23rd when we laid our mother to rest. 9 years prior, me and my brother were supposed to go to the grave and put something down that I made. He beat me to the grave. People, look after your homeless people. Look after your sick people. Look after the ones who are addicted and can't find the help. Help them. Help them find something. I've tried so hard with my brother, and I couldn't do it. I'm not qualified for those kind of things. Just like I'm not qualified to be a nurse, but I looked after my mother so well for 9 months before she died of cancer.
Well, Diana, you're certainly well spoken, and your words, I'm sure, will have an effect on a lot of people that are going to be watching this. So I want to say thank you, miigwech, to you for coming on our show and sharing a little bit of your story and what you think needs to be done. And again, certainly wish you the best of luck in your family going forward here.
Thank you very much for your time.
All right, it's time to step aside one final time. We still have a couple interviews left on the subject, so don't go anywhere. Welcome back to APTN in Focus. Vancouver's downtown east side has a reputation as a neighborhood where addiction and poverty is a common sight. But now one man is on a personal mission to help make a change for the better for the people that live there. APTN's Tina House has this story.
When James Harry walks through these alleys where open drug use is rampant, he doesn't see hopelessness, but rather potential and an opportunity to heal those that are suffering.
I know how they're hurting. I know why they're hurting. I know a lot of these people down here are running. They're running from the traumas, they're running from their hurts, right? And that's what we're trying to stop.
James is an outreach worker employed by his community, the Haisla Nation. He has an office at the Friendship Center and works with a team that helps Indigenous people to find housing and to heal from addictions and abuse. His main focus is to help other Haisla Nation members get into detox, a healing center, and then eventually return home to get reconnected to their families and culture. Edwin Foe is one of those success stories. He spent over 30 years drinking anything with alcohol in it, until that one day he met James 3 years ago.
It changed my life when he asked me if I wanted to get clean and sober, and I said, that was the first attempt. When I relapsed, and then I went back to Kitimat, and then now where I'm at now, James has played a big role. He saved my life, actually.
The initiative was started by Haisla band counselor Kevin Stewart when his own family member was lost on these streets, plagued by addiction issues.
We want our people to come back home and connect with their culture and their land, because that's what our people did in the past. That's what made us well and made us understand that we need each other to move forward in our cultural ways and the connection to our land, which is important to all our nations.
James Harry knows the reality of addiction all too well. He spent a few years down here himself, heavily addicted and hurting from the trauma of being an intergenerational residential school survivor. He says those were dark days, but after coming off of one particular 7-day binge, he had an epiphany that he deserved better, and he got into treatment.
It's a beautiful thing when you see somebody find that spark, find that life that they've lost. It's amazing, and that's basically my mission. I want people to feel how I feel today.
Other First Nations communities are now emulating the success of this program, hiring their own outreach workers to help their own members.
And James Harry joins us here on APTN in Focus now to talk about the work he and his nation are doing. James, thank you so much for joining us here today on APTN in Focus. Now, we saw a little bit of what you do in the previous story. Can you explain a bit more of what it is that you do?
Yeah, thanks for having me. So what I do is I've been hired by my nation, Haisla Nation, to do outreach for our people that are struggling in the downtown east side of Vancouver, Lower Mainland. So it wasn't anything that we had planned and made a big plan to do. It's kind of just one of our counselors was down there looking for a family member, and he noticed that a lot of our people were struggling down there. So this position came available, and I was blessed to be chosen for it. And the objective is to guide our people in the right direction. And as you know, a lot of our people are still feeling the impacts of the residential school and the intergenerational traumas that come with it. And we have a lot of people are running. Not just our people, but I think every nation in Canada, maybe BC, have something in the downtown east side of Vancouver.
Well,
and so,
sorry, James. Why was this something that you wanted to get into when you saw the position?
I'm a former addict myself. In March 25th, it'll be 9 years for my wife and I celebrating our healing journey. And I had spent some time in the downtown east side myself, and I I was running. And when my wife had gotten sick and we had to go to Vancouver in our first year of sobriety, and I did a walk just to get it out of my system, so that power, that pull of the downtown east side didn't have me anymore. And when I did that, I saw a lot of our people struggling, a lot of our people are hurting. So once I knew I was comfortable down there, I started going down there and just, handing out coffees or anybody wanted to talk, right? And then one day I saw one of our counselors down there. He was looking for a family member, and I helped him, didn't find him. And 2 weeks later, I got a call, said, I put it on a table, our council table, what I saw down there, with people hurting and struggling, and you can't let that happen. So I put it up forward that we need, on the table, that we need somebody there, an outreach worker. So I said, I put your name forward. I said, that's fine, that's okay. And 2 weeks after, and this is where I think Creator is doing his work, Greater Vancouver, over 2 million people in Greater Vancouver. I was in the same gas bar as another counselor who was down there. And she comes up to me and puts her hand out and she goes, just got off the phone and I just finished our meeting. So congratulations, you're our new outreach worker for downtown east side of Vancouver. And at that moment, I knew, I remember my first week of sobriety, my healing journey. An elder had told me, I shared a bit of my story. And he goes, well, it's obvious. Creator's kept you here for a reason, and you got to find out what that reason is. And when I was told about that position, I knew this is why Creator kept me here for.
Well, in your experience, so who or maybe what do you think could be responsible or partly responsible for those that are houseless or on the streets?
It's a trauma. It's the traumas that are going through in our communities that are still happening, right? Those traumas haven't stopped, even though there is schools that have far been closed, but they're still happening, right? And our people are running, and they try to find that voice and they're shunned, and rather than being in the same community as their abusers, they run. And unfortunately, the last place they'll see is the downtown east side.
So what kinds of supports, James, then, maybe if you could detail maybe a few specific that you think are needed to help change the way things are going currently?
I really feel very, very strongly about this outreach program that we have here. I think it's a missing link to a lot of our people's healing. Because we go into those comfort zones. It's a back alley, the doorway, or in our villages, communities, we go into their houses, knock on their door, we kick them up out of the alley and say, "Come on, let's go for a coffee." Gain that trust, because that trust is a big issue. And we start from there. And and sometimes we get lucky and maybe that first visit, okay, let's do it, I'm ready. Or in many cases with my clients down there, it's taken 3 years to get to a point where, okay, let's do this. Well, so I feel, having that familiar face from home, that friendly face, that it's not just a flash in the pan, but they know it's going to be there, right? And continues to be there day in, day out, and gain that trust that is badly needed. And we start from there.
Well, unfortunately, James, there's just so many stories that are similar across the country. And just on that last note that you touched of seeing like sort of a friendly face, I mean, how important is it that, you've sort of also been in their shoes at the same time? How important of a connection is that as well, that, firsthand what they're going through?
I think it's a big part of the job. When we created a society, and it's called All Nations Outreach Society. I'm the founder of it. And it started from the vision from the first year of my position, 2017. And when I get invited to communities to do a talk or to share my story, and I was encouraged that I could speak to the leadership about the importance of this. And when they asked, who do you think would be a good fit? And I said, somebody who had lived experience. Because I link it to something like a child. You know, a child feels that bad energy from somebody and they go hide behind mom's leg or dad's leg. Right. It's kind of the same thing with our people that are going through this trauma. They know when something's genuine and they know when somebody's reading from the book, right? And I feel the success that we're having with this program, and we are having good success getting our people the healing journey, is that because that we have that lived experience.
Now, James, I don't want to get too political, but I did want to ask, like, how much responsibility do you think the government should have in bringing people out of poverty, and whether that be in terms of funding or different programs? I mean, where does the government align along with what you are doing?
I think they have a big responsibility to fund programs like the Outreach Program. And to find the importance of what we're doing and the success we're having. And I think that is when a few bands have asked, what would the cost be? And when they know the cost, that's a big roadblock, because they don't have the funding. Fortunately, with that HISA, we have our own source revenue, which is paying for my position. But other bands aren't as fortunate, so that funding is crucial. And again, and I've had some political leaders that have come down a walk with me in the downtown east side, and they see the importance. They said, "This is something we got to be backing." I says, absolutely. This is a missing link to our people's healing. I truly believe that.
James, are you able to give us sort of a short and a long-term lookout of any plans you might have, or your nation might have, or do you have any expectations when it comes to hopefully solving this issue or greatly reducing it in the future?
I think the key word is healing. In order for us to move forward as a people, we need to start with that healing. And that goes for the housing. We can house them as many times as you want, but when they're so used to that dysfunction, that it's going to be like a revolving door. So that I think we need to focus on healing before anything else.
Well, James, we'll have to leave the conversation there, but I want to say a big thank you, Miigwech, to you for coming on and sharing a bit of your knowledge and insights and what you think can be done when it comes to the houseless and this issue. So thank you so much for joining us, Miigwech.
Thank you for having me.
Well, our final guest on the show today is also doing some great work here in the city of Winnipeg. Mark Sweet has recently started Warmer Hearts Winnipeg, where he and other volunteers go out and give soups, clothing, blankets, and other items to those in need. He joins us now. Mark, thanks so much for being here on APTN InFocus. First off, can you just explain to our viewers what Warmer Hearts is and what you do?
We're a group of people that go into our downtown community offering support to the homeless people living in the bus shelters. We offer them hot food, bag lunches, warm clothing, hugs, handshakes, some support, and just acceptance. It's an amazing thing, an amazing feeling.
Now, Mark, why was this something that you wanted to start?
Well, unfortunately, there was a woman by the name of Kayla Ray that passed away about a month ago now in the bus shelter in St. Boniface. And I've always wanted to help, with people with addictions or homelessness, but this actually sparked a fire under my feet and got running. It's a tragic way for somebody to die, and if we can save one person, that's a blessing.
Well, a lot of the volunteers, Mark, that you're working with have been in the same position as some of the people that you folks are helping. How important of an aspect is that when you're doing this?
I think it's important on all, all sides of it. I mean, for ourselves, we have an understanding, we have compassion, empathy, but people receive us a lot better when we're explaining to them that we've been there. We're not there to stand over them. We're not giving them, a handout. We're giving them a hand up. It makes connections so much easier, than just handing somebody something because it's a good thing to do, and walking away. Is that really helping somebody? I truly believe that sitting there, giving a handshake, listening to their story, offering suggestions or offering our story, to bring hope, inspire people to change their lives.
And Mark, it seems like there's more and more, of these nonprofit groups and people just wanting to help out of their own good nature. Is that encouraging to you? What do you think of all of these, more and more people wanting to help?
Oh, it's absolutely encouraging. I believe that if we all came together and worked as, one unity, then, we're not going to be able to end homelessness, but we can sure make a big dent in it in our city.
Well, you're walking on the street, and you see what's going on out there. Who or what do you think is maybe at the root cause of those who are unhoused?
For myself, when I became homeless, it was due to addiction and due to loneliness, and it's a struggle. Once we're in that mind frame, and we don't have really a lot of resources that help pick people up. There's a lot of waiting lists. There's come back later. Well, unfortunately, some people aren't able to come back. It's sad. I think we need a lot more resources and a lot more funding, obviously, to support these resources.
So from the problems to go into the flip side of that, what kinds of supports specifically do you think are needed to help change the way things are going right now?
Well, absolutely needed is more detox areas, safe detox areas, housing, like actual shelters. The shelters that we have right now, people don't feel safe there. People aren't going to go somewhere where they don't feel safe. People stay outside because that's where they're out in the open. What could happen to you out in the open, right? There's so many different aspects to homelessness and what needs to be done. But for sure, detoxes need to be a high priority, and the waiting lists need to stop. Any housing.
Now, when you say waiting lists, are you talking about a waiting list at a shelter or something like that? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, waiting lists for detox, even shelters. There's a shelter down on Henry. They have 50 beds for homeless people. That people are actually homeless are people who don't have an income, or low income. And yet this place charges $1,200 a month for people to stay there because it's funded by the government. Well, what about the people that aren't able to get on EIA, aren't able to get on welfare? Where do they go? There's more than 50 people. Our city has how many people in it? It's to turn anybody away, especially in this time of year when it's cold. It's sad.
Yeah,
it's very sad. I don't know how people sleep at night being able to tell them to go, that there's no beds. Yet there's rooms upstairs. If you pay $1,200 a month, they'd be able to stay there.
Yeah, it's certainly sad indeed, Mark. And unfortunately, there are so many stories similar across the country. It's not just a Winnipeg issue. What do you think attributes to having such a national issue, really?
It's for myself. I truly believe that this, people that are suffering homelessness, it's obviously, some sort of addictions go with it, some sort of mental health, and with those, we're spending a lot of money to house people that are addicts and that are committing crimes and stuff to support an addiction. Well, what if we address that addiction, and when they need it, we would have such a better turnout than housing people in jails where the government's paying hundreds of thousands of dollars, and they're just going to keep going back, and they're just going to stay in the addiction. Nothing's going to change. Put that money towards recovery. Put that money towards places where people can go at that moment when they, in their mindset, say, I'm done. I don't want to be homeless. I don't want to be an addict. I don't want to live this lifestyle. Because I know from experience, if I'm getting denied at that time, it may be another year, 2 or 3 years before I come back into that mindset.
And Mark, just before we let you go, are you able to give us a bit of an outlook, a short and long-term outlook of any plans you might have with Warmer Hearts or anything when it comes to the issue of those who are unhoused?
Oh, definitely. We are looking to start our own shelter. We want to keep it kind of like close to downtown, but not downtown. And we are raising funds right now to nonprofit our group. That way we can put out, as much support and materials that are needed to help. So, we've got a great group of people there. We solely go on the donations of, people who love other people, who care. It's amazing. I truly believe that one small act of kindness can make a world of difference. Just say hello, check on somebody. Give them a hug, ask them how they're doing, not what they're doing. It's all an approach to things. If we approach somebody with care, we're going to make a lot of difference.
Well, Mark, that's certainly well said, and we certainly wish you the best of luck going forward with Warmer Hearts. And I mean, the work you and other people do is certainly appreciated, I'm sure. So we'll have to leave it there. Mark, thanks so much for joining us.
Okay, thank you very much, Daryl.
All right, that's all we have for you this afternoon on APTN in Focus. As always, if you're the podcast type, today's episode will be available as a podcast. You can listen and subscribe on aptnnews.ca/podcasts, or you can find us on your favorite player. And if you missed any of our past episodes or any of this episode and you want to catch up, you can find them and more on aptnnews.ca/infocus. Once again, thank you to our guests for joining us today and to you as well for joining and listening. I'm Daryl Stranger. We'll see you back next week.